financially, we're still able to help the community, which has been kind of nice and help keep our staff pretty engaged, I will say. We have people out in our facility every Friday. We pick up some donations to Meadow Gold a couple times a week. Our staff has been really helpful in jumping in, okay, where can I help? How can I help you guys? So we've handled it, I think, as best as you can when there's just so much uncertainty, especially because we don't know when sports are going to be able to operate again. We may get a little bit of a break here in the summer is maybe a thought where we can run a camp, but then what happens in the fall and the winter? Does this come back? Do we have to do this all over again? So I think for now, we're just trying to figure out ways that we community right now. And I think so far we found a couple of good ways that we can still impact.
Great, thank you. Yeah, that's very complicated issue, and I'm glad you guys are able to try to find some solutions. I would like to welcome Mark Turner with the Colorado Nonprofit Association. Mark is the Director of Public Policy. Mark, are you able to hear us?
Yeah, I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Yes, thanks, Mark. I appreciate you joining us. Mark, if you would like to, I think the association could be a very tremendous resource for all of our nonprofits in Jefferson County. So if you'd like to kind of explain a little bit more about the association, and then as well as you guys have an amazing resource list of some of the federal aid programs that nonprofits have access to, like the CARES Act. And if you can kind of go into a little bit more about that as well, that would be great.
Yeah, that'd be great. Can you hear me well?
Yes, I can. Thank you.
Excellent. Well, my name is Mark Turner. I'm the Senior Director of Public Policy with Colorado Nonprofit Association. Colorado Nonprofit Association is a statewide membership association for nonprofit organizations. And really pleased to be speaking with you all today. I'm Lakewood High School graduate, so Jeffco has always had a nice place in my heart. Talking about kind of what we have, I'll talk about first like what we have to offer in general, and then kind of dive into what's been happening ever since 19 and for a lot of our staff, myself included, most of the work that we're doing right now is very focused on responding to COVID-19. You kind of have three buckets of services that we provide to our member organizations. There's membership services, professional development, and advocacy. Our memberships are set up on a sliding scale basis, so that way for smaller organizations, those dues are more affordable, and then higher dues for those who can have the means to be able to. We also have business memberships for businesses that tend to work with nonprofits, whether they are consultants that are specifically working with nonprofits, or companies like Office Depot where they provide discounts to their nonprofits who have accounts with them. Talking about our membership services, I think the thing we're probably most well known for is our job board. I haven't talked to our membership staff to see what that looks like during COVID-19, but usually we're one of the sites that people go to the most when they're looking for nonprofit jobs here in the state, and our members are able to post for free. So that's probably going to be a huge benefit for them, I think, as we kind of get towards the end of this, and hopefully organizations who've had to lay people off will be able to rehire. We provide a lot of corporate discounts for our nonprofit members. I think two of the ones that come to mind for me right now are partnership with Employers Council. So for nonprofits that have 10 or fewer employees, they have a specific membership that they can access with Employers Council. And in fact, we've been partnering with Employers Council for weekly webinar, I think bi-weekly webinars, where they've been on there to help answer questions about not only to handle women issues in this whole situation, but also some of the aid that's available through the Families First Act, the refundable tax credits that are available for those employers who use paid sick leave, and those expanded family and medical leave benefits that act provided. And also, we're spending a lot of time trying to get the word out about unemployment. We have a partnership with the Unemployment Services Trust. So for nonprofit organizations, they have the option of either paying taxes into the state unemployment system or opting out. And if they opt out, they can participate in unemployment trusts, which is one of the services that we offer in partnership with Unemployment Services Trust. Or they can pay those unemployment claims as they come up. And so we've been trying to work with the state to provide as much unemployment relief as possible. But for our larger nonprofit organizations, they often either participate in trusts to save money, or they pay those unemployment claims back to the state when they come in. And the federal government has provided about 50% relief for unemployment claims for self-insured nonprofits for unemployment. But the other 50%, the nonprofits are going to end up having to reimburse the state for that, which we think is going to be a pretty significant hardship in these times. So that's one area where we're spending a lot of time focusing in terms of advocacy work. As far as professional development, we do offer trainings throughout the year to our members, and all of our trainings are free to members, and there is usually a charge for non-members who wish to participate. A lot of those trainings have been made available for free right now during these times in COVID. And in fact, we have a series of trainings that are really meant to deal with COVID, not just the employment aspects of that and the fundraising aspects, but also just trying to help build morale for nonprofits and deal with a lot of the ensuring that nonprofit employees are staying healthy mentally during this time. A lot of organizations are having to work from home. We, like other nonprofits, have had to have several of our events canceled in March. We had a conference, Colorado Springs, and our annual awards luncheon mid-March, and as we were seeing how things were trending, we had to cancel those and had to go through the process of renegotiating with the hotels that we were with to cancel those and try and minimize the liability. And we know that's an issue that a lot of nonprofits are experiencing for events that may have already occurred in March or April, or might be upcoming, where it's not really clear whether the coast is going to be clear for safe in-person gatherings. So I wanted to talk a little bit about what's going on in the advocacy front, just kind of very broadly. A lot of what I've been working on has been focused on what's going on in the federal government and helping out our national partners. And I think there's been a lot of really significant actions that have been taken by Congress in terms of helping out nonprofits and small businesses. As I mentioned earlier, the Families First Act, I don't think nonprofits are talking as much about that, but there are refundable tax credits through that program for organizations who are needing to provide paid leave for employees who are experiencing symptoms of COVID and hopefully will have the opportunity to get tested. And also those paid family leave benefits for those employees who need to stay home because their kids are out of school, or otherwise there's no access to, otherwise they're going to be left without childcare. There's also the CARES Act, which I think we're all probably heard a lot about, and hopefully some small businesses and nonprofits have been able to benefit from the loan programs. 3 loan programs through the CARES Act. As you have all heard, Paycheck Protection funding, that has essentially dried up, but we're hearing that there are some efforts in Congress perhaps next week to put more funding into that program. as far as I know, the economic injury disaster loans through the SBA are still available. I think that they've kind of put some limits on the per organization assistance and put some measures into place to based on employee count. So that's something to be aware of. Through that program, there's a $10,000 advance that can be available to organizations that demonstrate economic injury, with the opportunity to get some other low interest rate loan assistance. But you know, from what I've heard, like the Small Business Administration has dealt with more claims, more applications for loan programs in the last few weeks than they did for entire years. So it's certainly getting that assistance has been a challenge, just because they probably are needing some more support to be able to handle all of the demand. And we're guidance should be coming out pretty soon on what's called the MidSize Loan Program from the Treasury and the Federal Reserve. This is for businesses with between 500 and 10,000 employees. And some initial guidance has come out from the Federal Reserve around how that's going to help businesses. We and our national partners are trying to get some clarity about what's going to be available for nonprofit organizations. There's some questions about some of the ambiguity in the language in the act. So we've been reaching out to some of our member organizations that have more than 500 employees, which most of our organizations are much smaller than that, to reach out to the Federal Reserve. And I think there should be some changes in it soon, but essentially we want to make sure nonprofits can benefit from that assistance, because we believe that's how the law is written. And other than that, I think a lot of our members have participated in our social media groups. We started a Facebook and a LinkedIn group specifically around COVID, and there are probably about 1,600 people who joined that over the last few months. And it's just been, I think, a good avenue to share some resources on what's going on out there, whether it's some humor to really kind of lighten up the day, or information about the loan programs, or nonprofits just really trying to ask for help navigating these programs. For the loan program specifically, we partnership with a national law firm to answer questions around SBA loan programs. Obviously, I think that's going to be a little less beneficial for the time being unless Congress puts some more funds into the Paycheck Protection Program. But for a lot of organizations who are experiencing challenges understanding how to fill out the applications, or how to get some really specific, fact-specific questions answered, we were able to get some pro bono help for them, as well as really kind of leaning on the guidance from Colorado Small Business Development Centers and the SBA and other available guidance to put together an FAQ for nonprofits on the loan programs. So we're essentially just trying to keep up with everything that's going on out there, put good information out there. Nonprofits know what resources are available to them. In addition to all of this, the state has its COVID relief fund, and I believe there's upwards of $10 million that have been provided through the program. Nonprofits can apply for assistance if they're showing some of their work is helping to respond to COVID-19. There are several waves of applications, but it's a fairly limited pot of funds overall. So we've been hearing that it's been a pretty competitive process to get those grants, but it has at least been a good example of the way in which our foundations and the governor's office have stepped up to provide some more assistance and more charitable giving to support what nonprofits are doing. For our members, we've so far provided 2-month extensions on their membership deadlines to help kind of get them through some of these challenges. You know, I'm sure with a lot of chambers on the line that you understand entirely what we're going through, and just trying to retain members and try to help them out and be mindful of their financial positions. And I think the last thing I would mention is that we are working with our national partners for more advocacy, specifically for nonprofits. There is a demand right now for $60 billion more in loan funds to support the work of the nonprofit sector. And also, the CARES Act provided a charitable deduction. So essentially, whether you itemize or not on your taxes, you can deduct $300, up to $300 over the next year, charitable giving. And so we are looking to see if we can advocate for something more in line with proposals that have been put forth in recent years, whether it's having capital or allowing donors to deduct up to $4,000 for gifts that they would make between now and July, or through the end of the with the extended tax deadline. There's some possibility that if Congress is inclined to do this, that charitable gifts made between March and July could be deducted on this year's taxes for donors. But more likely what's going to happen is if that charitable deduction, if we are able to get that expanded, that will just apply for gifts that are made in 2020 and would be deducted on 2020 tax return. So a lot of information. Happy to be on the line, keep answering questions that you might have.
Great. Thank you, Mark. Really appreciate that. And yeah, that is a lot of amazing information. And so we are getting some questions through the Q&A line. So just keep in mind, as we go along, feel free to submit those questions, and that should be on the right side of your screen. And so for Mark, would you say some of the better places to go to access these links and resources are the Colorado Nonprofit Association website and your Facebook page?
Yeah, I think those are the best places to go. But you know, everybody's always welcome to give me a call or send me an email. Usually there's a lot of more updated information that we just haven't really gotten online.
All right, wonderful. Thank you. Well, I'd like to move over to some of our roundtable questions. And I wanted to go back to Tegan at a core. And I know you guys are in a kind of a precarious situation, but how are you being able to, I guess, maintain fundraising or your development efforts kind of during this time? Have you guys, especially with your limited staff now, what kind of strategies have you guys determined you needed to employ just to maintain connections with any donors or any sponsorships and things like that? And yeah, how are you maintaining those connections, Tegan?
Yeah, so fundraising and development has never been more important than ever, really. You know, there's no other thing that's holding us and so many other nonprofits afloat right now, just not having that ability to, work within our normal scope. Interestingly, we did have kind of this nationwide event planned to share our documentary Saving Places, as I mentioned before, in preserved or restored, some kind of historically significant theater. We had dozens of states lined up, tons of screenings, all basically from March through July. So those are all canceled. So with that, we kind of got the wind knocked out of us on our major push, and just like any event. So what we did is we turned to digital, being able to pivot as much as we can with the tools that are already available. So we are now featuring it on demand through Vimeo. And again, just trying to communicate more on a nationally, and using Colorado and Denver as an epicenter of just trying to, again, push that out. How I've been in contact with our donors, partners, and sponsors, I think now more than ever, it's been the good old-fashioned phone call has been the most effective. picking up the phone, chatting, asking how are things above and beyond, making sure everyone's doing well, being very sensitive in addition, and not doing a direct ask, but generally the ask comes naturally after that. So just touching base and making sure everyone's doing well, and keeping that personal connection with our donors and sponsors and partners. So it's been a lot of good old fashioned with a twist on email.
Well, thank you. Yes, it's definitely takes a little bit of creativity, but sometimes those just good old fashioned human connections can be more valuable than ever during this time. So thank you. Move over to Gold Crown, and you mentioned, Tani, that a lot of your programming is put on hold because of this. But how are you able to manage all the staff and volunteers that you had operating the scheduling and the refereeing the games, and essentially all the people that just it takes to get the programming for children? How are you able to manage them, whether they're furloughed or if they had to be let go? How do you still connect with the people that support the organization?
So far, we are pretty fortunate that we haven't had to furlough any of our full-time staff members. Obviously, we have a ton of part-time staff, whether it's supervisors or concession stand kids who are usually high school kids. Those, obviously, we don't have anything for them right now. We've been really communicative, I think, with our officiating group. We've got about 600 officials in our pool. And we 2 nights ago had like a virtual meeting, almost like it wasn't really officials training, but it was just, we had a former NBA official, gosh, and I'm blanking on his name. I think it's Mark Zielinski. And he came in and basically ran a little bit of a training for our officials that they could get on a Zoom call and they could connect with him, ask him questions. And so that's one of the ways that we're trying to stay connected, is basically moving all of our in-person trainings with officials, for example. Those are now becoming virtual trainings. We're talking about running some virtual clinics, which we're in the very beginning stages of that, where, you know, we have relationships with college coaches. So a college coach could get on and do some drills that these kids can work on at home, and still try and stay connected with our kids there. One of the ways that at least our full-time staff, which I mentioned, has been engaged still, which has been great, is through this Jeffco Eats program. We're able to have our staff come in and help out, a few at a time, to, you know, preserve social distancing guidelines. But really, it's really been about communication, I would say. And I think our leadership has done a really good job. Our executive director sends an email out every Sunday night or Monday morning, just as an update to the staff. And encourages everyone to communicate with our leadership team if they need anything. And then with, like I said, you know, most of our volunteers are coaches. So we're sending emails out still to all of our parents and coaches, just as a, hey, this is what we're doing. You know, we're obviously not able to provide programming right now, but when we're able to provide programming, we'll be here. And that's kind of our main message that we're sending out to the community right now is, yes, we can't provide anything to you right now, or we've shifted our focus a little bit in what we provide right now. But when we're able to operate sports programming again, we'll be here. We'll be an outlet for you to send your kids when you're them being in the house and they're sick of being in the house. And so we're really just working on messaging and creating a consistent tone to send to our database that basically says, we're still here, we're not going anywhere. And I just think the communication piece has been a huge part of why we're still connecting with all of our volunteers and our full-time staff members.
Yeah, thank you. I think that communication is key, especially from leadership positions and executive teams, having people who are able to be a little bit transparent and update even when there is no updates, since we're all seeming to go from day to day, week to week in our positions. I wanted to transition over to Cassie. Cassie, I know we had some difficulties earlier with the phone. Just wanted to check in. Are we operational? Are you able to hear us and communicate with us now? Cassie? Okay. So I guess that's still in the works.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can. Hi, Cassie.
Okay, good. Hi.
Yeah. So
I
Cassie.
am dialed in on my phone. I apologize for my audio issues. So again, I'm Cassie Tanner. I'm the executive director at SBA Today. So what was your specific question you wanted me to address?
Well, I guess we could. What is SBA Today, and what is your guys' mission, and what do you do? What do you do for the community?
Great, thanks. So SBA Today Healthy Pet Center is a nonprofit veterinary clinic based in Jefferson County. We serve pet owners in financial need and are open to everyone. COVID has had a very, very significant impact on our business operations. About 90% of our revenue is program revenue from surgery. And the governor on March 19th halted all elective and non-urgent surgery procedures, which includes spay and neuter. So unfortunately, we did have to furlough 14 of our 17 staff members, which was obviously very, very difficult. We are trying very hard to maintain business operations and have been fortunate to receive the PPP loan funding and are awaiting word on our EIDL funding. One of the ways we've been able to switch gears a little bit since we had to close the clinic is by offering telemedicine. So we do have the ability to offer virtual veterinary visits so that we can continue helping pet owners that can't leave their house with needs like skin issues and minor issues that they don't actually need to go into a veterinary office for, that we can provide diagnosis and even write prescriptions that they can go pick up at their local pharmacy. So that's been pretty helpful. We're also running a Stay Positive campaign with some branding and doing some fundraising efforts around that with some sweatpants and stickers and soon masks. So that's kind of where we're at.
Great. So are some of these new ideas that you guys had to come up with to kind of handle the pandemic? And do you feel like any of these innovative solutions that you're having to come up with, do you foresee those being part of your future strategies going or in the future once things get back to normal?
We've discussed whether telemedicine is something that we will be able to continue. For us, like many nonprofits, it becomes a capacity issue. We do 25 to 50 spay and neuter surgeries every single day when we are open. And we anticipate a continued great need for that service when we are able to reopen because so many Coloradans have use this time to welcome new furry family members since they can be home to potty train them and be with them. So we know that spay neuter is our primary mission, and making sure that's affordable and accessible to everyone is really important. So we're going to probably continue with that being our primary mission, and if we're able to continue using telemedicine, we will, but only if there's a need for it. That remains mission centric.
Great, thank you. I appreciate that. Yeah, so we'll move over to Cynthia with Porchlight. And Porchlight it's a very interesting nonprofit. You guys have the unique challenge of being a relatively new organization. So how has the coronavirus affected your initial 5-year plan? Being a new nonprofit, what kind of wrench does this pandemic put into your future growth?
Morning, and thanks again for including us. I think like what I'm hearing this morning and what we've been hearing from, I guess, a lot of our partners in Colorado and across the country is we don't know yet. We're feeling as optimistic as possible. We are so new that our facility isn't yet open. It's under renovation. We're on the corner of 8th and Quail in Lakewood, across the street from DDRC, one of our wonderful partners. So So Candace Coolidge is our executive director, Nicole Lopez is our navigator, and it's just the three of us actually at working for Porchlight. We'll really only add a receptionist to the team once we get moved in, because the concept in the Family Justice Center is that we facilitate the one place where all of the providers are co-located. It's that collaboration of services serving domestic violence victims and survivors and their children, but also human trafficking, elder abuse, child abuse, sex abuse, and abuse of at-risk individuals. So we've been doing this work from the 5th floor of the Jefferson County Courthouse for the past year. So for us, other than not being able to gather and do the work together in the office, this has just been all of these kinds of WebEx type meetings as far as the continued planning with our construction team and with our partners. We're actually going to do a WebEx with breakout sessions for some continued annual planning and to plan our opening. So it's basically all of this kind of meeting. Nicole is navigating with victims and survivors and still making referrals to all of our partners. So if you all know of a need, we're working. It's just heartbreaking to hear about the layoffs and the furloughs, and so I realize that we're very blessed that we are still working. As far as going forward, like what I'm hearing from all of you guys, we've had to cancel all of our fundraising, and I've been involved with starting 2 other justice centers. We all know how critically important that fundraising is. So that's scary. I mean, we're very concerned. Right now, we're financially sound. We just great luck with federal funding for specific to family justice centers. Of course, going forward, when we're all allowed to start fundraising again, as a justice center, we don't want to be directly competing with, for example, our 15 in-house partners. We have a total of 70 partners in the area. We don't want to be competing for that fundraising money. So I think that will look different for us. But basically, we're being told by our construction team that we should still be on target for an August grand opening. And hopefully we'll be allowed to open our facility by August.
Okay. Oh, thank you. And, that is a good point with everyone kind of going through the same issues at the same times. And a lot of nonprofits are partnering with other nonprofits, and it seems like a lot of those resources are going to be utilized by each other, and that competition and being sensitive to that is something that it's a complex issue that we do need to be aware. So thank you. So I did want to go over to Rob, as the Developmental Disability Resource Center is one of our larger nonprofits on this board. So Rob, you mentioned that you guys were applying for some of the federal aid programs. So as a kind of a mid-sized nonprofit, what has been your experience so far in applying for assistance?
Well, I'll start with, I'm glad you guys have had more success than we have. That's very positive to hear. As Mark alluded to earlier, we've been following a lot of this. We've actually had some direct conversations with Colorado Nonprofit Association on some of the other legislative, state and federal pieces that they're looking at as well. But we really looked into the Family First Coronavirus Response Act, because I do think that there's a substantial benefit for folks, for employers in there, even as nonprofits. There's a lot of misinformation, a lot of confusion about the benefit for nonprofits, but you would get a payroll tax deduction, which would still have the same impact. Unfortunately, for us, we're in excess of 500 employees. We're just over that. We're in between 510, 530 employees. And one of the first criteria related to that is you have to have fewer than 500 employees. we did a lot of research. There's also it's available to certain public entities, and DDRC is set up as a community center board. We're one of 20 community center boards throughout the state. And we're actually set up in Colorado state statute. So we did a lot of research to figure out if we might be able to fit under that stimulus program as sort of a pseudo governmental. Unfortunately, that fell short. And I could summarize this in about 3 minutes, but it seems like I spent 2 weeks researching it and doing all the work associated with it. So unfortunately, we didn't qualify there. Similar to the Paycheck Protection Program, once again, the one of the initial criteria is to be under 500 employees, which we obviously didn't qualify there as well. But then there's exceptions to that as well, that you have to sort of dive into the SBA regs to see if you qualify further. We worked with our bank. I mean, we had our application for the PPP dollars ready to go April 1st. We were working with the bank, ready to go before a lot of the guidance even came out. As with all of you guys, the guidance has been, occurring hour by hour with some of this information. They were unable to render a legal opinion. We worked with our CPA firm. They felt that unfortunately we didn't qualify either. So, we pretty much made the decision that, that was unfortunately not going to help us as well. So while a bunch of work was done, we so far have not qualified for any of the stimulus that we've explored on the forgivable side. I'm sure if we need to look into, other loan options, we will do just that. But at this point, we do have adequate reserves, so we're monitoring that. But I do want to get back to the earlier comment is, right now, everybody's fundraising and development efforts have kicked into high gear, grants, donations, etc. And it's really unfortunate because we're all competing against each other to some degree. And, the general population is feeling a lot less rich, if you will, with the market, with unemployment doing what it's doing. So it's really a challenging time to be looking at that side of it. But I know, we've started some fundraising efforts and submitted numerous grants too. So it's a really challenging time. So, but once again, I want to thank you guys for letting me participate. Sorry I didn't have any of the answers on the federal side.
Oh, absolutely no problem. And really, one of the goals of this roundtable is to bring us all together and make sure our nonprofits in our county are able to get the access to the resources they need. And hopefully, even though we are separate entities and there is some competition over funding and even employees in certain cases, I think it's important for us to recognize that the missions of the nonprofits are to help the citizens of the county, and that we can rely on each other to help us through this very extraordinary time that we're going through right now. I did want to pivot. We are very lucky to have a lot of our chambers represented here on this call. And chambers are a very unique type of nonprofit that do help a lot of our smaller businesses throughout the community and really kind of help keep our economy vibrant. So I did want to turn over to the chambers now and really ask them, how have you been able to connect with your members and show them what support the chambers have to offer? Because I think a lot of organizations, especially in times like this, tend to turn internally and try to figure out their problems on themselves with their staff and to try to create those own solutions. Whereas partners like the chambers have a lot of resources available. So we'll start up north, Cami with Arvada. Would you like to talk about the Arvada Chamber and how you guys are getting the word out on your services that you can help your businesses?
Sure. So there's obviously a lot of change happening for everybody. And so we're really focused on being a centralized source of information for businesses and nonprofit organizations within our community. Early on in this, we launched a resource toolkit, and I don't want to steal the thunder of many of my chamber peers on this call. And so I'll probably keep my remarks brief and give everybody a chance to share all the great work that's happening amongst chambers, because I been incredibly impressed. All of us have pivoted to fit the needs of what our businesses are going through today. One of the first things that we did to support our community is we actually changed our branding as an organization. So we're now the Arvada E-Chamber of Commerce, because in an organization that typically is all about convening and bringing people together, we had to think quickly about how we continue to support businesses and coming together, but through that virtual opportunity. And that has been a huge learning curve for us, as I know many people have gone through how to use technology effectively through that. But that's one of the big things we're offering right now is virtual convening, bringing people together around education topics and opportunities to connect in meaningful ways. But one of our big learnings in that has been timing and tone. This is so much for so many people, and we've realized that it's important to be thoughtful about what businesses are dealing with. So for the past 2 weeks, we've been really focused on educating around funds and opportunities for people to figure out what their next steps are. As we move into recovery, our role is most likely going to shift into more marketing-based, more shop local, more resilience training, things like that. So it's kind of a moving target. And just like every nonprofit on this call, we're trying to figure out what our next steps are as we've blown up our strategic plan and are trying to figure out exactly who we're going to be when we grow up. So I appreciate that opportunity to share.
Thank you. And so move over to your neighbors, Juliet, with the Westminster Chamber.
Thank you, Phil. And thank you, Cami, for not going way in detail. Gives me an idea to also stay high level so I don't take over the conversation. But I think, a lot of my peers in our chamber really has holistically looked at the business community. We're the backbone as a chamber, and being able to information share to the businesses as we come across, whether it's funding opportunities or resources that are available, orders that are out there that our businesses need to comply with. We're constantly sharing that. And I think, people always reference chambers as membership, and we are known for this, and we still communicate to our members through our emails, but we have that outward presence. And so we're leveraging a lot of our social media platforms. I know a lot of our chambers have done resource pages where we've combined all the efforts that are going on and kind of advocated for our businesses through that route. A lot of our programs are now all virtual. We've paused any of the annual type of programs that we would have had around this time. And we've really shifted on educating the public, from Monday updates with our mayor, Herb Atchison, on what the city is doing, to Fridays with our elected officials at county and state level and how their response has been to COVID. Between those days, we've really dedicated that time to focus on educating businesses on various skill sets that they might need to adapt to their the current market, or to help with certain challenges that we've heard through various surveys we've conducted. So workforce has been one of those. We've done a couple of job fairs for that. We have another one that's scheduled at the end of this month, but trying to equip not just the business community with how to adapt to this environment, but our residents, right? Because we hear a lot of them are also struggling with rent payments, with a new career path, and are filing unemployment rates that are astronomical. So a few different things that we've done. I liked hearing about the Colorado Nonprofit Association and some of the groups that they've created. We've created a masterminds group on our social platform as well for our businesses to support one another. So what is an issue that you're facing, for idea sharing, for that community to kind of come back and help one another navigate through the waters at this time. And then the last thing I wanted to touch on, we like to partner quite a bit with various organizations and groups. And so we partnered to launch a mask drive. So we have people that are working on creating masks that we give out to businesses and people in need at no cost to help spread the word on that. And then we have a new effort that's focused on helping our senior population. So matching up community members with our seniors so that we continue to build that positivity or even at the social distancing time.
Wonderful. Thank you. I appreciate that. So Nola, with Golden, how are you guys doing down there?
So I echo a lot of, what me and Juliet have said. One of the things that has really come out of all of this is that collaborative effort. And so all the chambers have been meeting regularly and working together and trying to kind of create similar programs within our own individual communities. And so really we have been focused again on that resource sharing and making sure that our businesses have access to the resource, and that includes both our for-profit and nonprofit members, as well as just those in our community, and that our community members know what's available to them. We've all launched takeover campaigns in our own communities to support the restaurant industry. Many of us have launched or are launching gift card programs in our community as well. So really we are trying to be that central hub of information for our communities. And in addition to that, we've been able to partner in kind of some high level conversations. We've all been on many calls with Congressman Perlmutter to really look at advocacy issues in our community. And I think that's kind of been a big key thing that we've done as well, is we've all been working with our local cities, our local nonprofits, our local foundations. So I think all of us have probably sat in many meetings with many different people in our community to try to just bring all that information together into one place.
Wonderful, thank you. Pam Bales with the West Metro Chamber. How are you guys doing?
So echo everything that these guys say. We have been sharing Takeout Takeover, which Arvada came up with to get our restaurants on board so we can support them. The thing that we've been doing, which is interesting, is we have pivoted as well with our nonprofits. So we did a big I'm going to get the P's wrong, PPE drive with Colorado Public Health, which all the chambers and business associations really got out there, got us volunteers, got the word out there, and it was an amazing event. Thousands of gloves, masks, things that Colorado Public Health needed. And then we are also working with the Food Task Force. So that is one of my weekly meetings where everybody has really come together. Hopefully we're going to be doing a virtual food drive. Ladies, I'll talk to you about that later. To make sure that everybody is getting fed, our vulnerable residents in all of Jefferson County. So it's been a very different time for chambers. We are really working to make sure we are the resource for funding, whether it's nonprofits, whether it's small business, whether it's large business. We keep those updated, on our pages all the time. I tell people, go to any chamber in Jefferson County, you can find the information you need. But we really are working with our partners to make sure that chambers are doing what they can. We have good memberships, people that are willing to help. We're also doing some volunteer matching, and I know Cammie's doing the same thing. If you have a volunteer need, we're going to try to find somebody to help you, because most volunteer corps are 65 and older, and they are not the ones that need to be out there. So there's been some very interesting things that have popped up. And I'm just like the rest of the group. It's like we are nonprofits and we are not eligible for a lot of things either. So we are struggling to figure out how we keep our dollars coming in, because we are not doing events, and our memberships, we have to keep our members going. And if they can't pay right now, we're not going to worry about that. We'll worry about things get back to new normal. So we're there for the community, and I think we're there for our nonprofits and for each other. So thanks.
Thank you. And chambers, you guys are so tied into your communities. You really are able to be on the ground and know your specific locations very intimately. So, like you said, are within your communities, your townships, are there any areas that you feel are being underrepresented in the COVID case? And so are you seeing any particular businesses that are being hit particularly hard? And also, is there anything that the county or even citizens of the community can help in terms of volunteering, or are there services that we can provide to kind of help you guys, because you guys are such nurturers of your own communities? How can we help you essentially maintain your effectiveness? And this could be for any of the chambers if you guys would like to type in. And I guess let me focus that question. What can Jefferson County do to help the chamber specifically in helping you guys make sure your businesses are healthy during this time?
Phil, I'm happy to kind of tackle from our lens. We actually just launched a blog article that talks about 24 ways you can impact your community. I'd be glad to share the link in the chat function. And there's 3 different groups that we're kind of thinking about. The first is businesses. And I know in kind of a traditional model, people don't think about giving back to businesses, but this is that moment that we all need to be thinking differently about our local economy. And so ordering takeout, buying gift cards from your favorite retailer. A lot of businesses have launched some really awesome virtual experiences that you could do and have an arts experience from your living room. So thinking about those ways you can help your favorite businesses is critical. We're also encouraging people to think about the nonprofit community. Obviously, Community First Foundation has done an incredible job of lifting up the Hope Fund and is looking for donations to that. There's a ton of nonprofits that need support for their annual events that are coming up. And then we also have a message about helping each other. Neighboring and being good members of our community right now means looking out for people in ways maybe we haven't thought of before, asking if they need groceries or there's things we can do to help. So again, I'll share that link with a few additional ideas in the chat function.
Great, thank you. So Pam, and forgive me if this is still kind of in the development page, but you mentioned that there was going to be some kind of virtual food drive.
Yeah, okay, so I'm working on it because I sit on this task force with the food. Everybody's doing a great job working together. We're making sure people get delivery. The mountain communities, our other 2 counterparts, Conifer and Evergreen, we've been working with them as well. They have different barriers to get food to different people. And so what we're talking about is, social distancing. People do not want to bring their food down to the Action Center. The Action Center is acting as kind of the food hub with Food Bank of the Rockies. And so other groups are coming down to get their food from there because Food Bank of the Rockies is trying to do the entire metro area. So what we're looking at doing is basically, I'm waiting for a little bit more information. We would do this all in our own communities. We're looking at doing a drop down. This came from Jean Gordon up in Arvada, Cami. Drop down. So each of the groups would be able to say, this is where we want our money to go. So it might be a food bank in Arvada. It might be one in Westminster or in Golden, the Backpack Project. So what you could do is you could say where you want your money to go. But the thing is, if you even give $10 with what they can buy wholesale from Food Bank of the Rockies is so much more food than if we went to King Soopers and bought $10 worth of green beans. So what I want to do is show people, look, $10 makes a big difference. $5 makes a difference. If we can do this through all of the chambers, that could be a virtual food drive, and that cash is going to go a lot further than the actual food. I mean, and Food Bank of the Rockies is doing a great job, but it's not going to get less. I mean, I think this is what people are not ready for. As people lose their jobs, don't go back to their jobs. There are going to be new people that have never gone to a food bank before. That's another thing we're working on, is to destigmatize the perception that, no, I only donate to the food bank. I don't need to go to the food bank. It's like, yeah, you may need to, and it's okay. So that's kind of what we're working on. And so I'll keep you guys apprised of that. And we need to do it probably in the next 2 weeks. So you know how one day is 1 week and 1 week is 1 month. I know you all feel it.
Great, thank you for that. I did have a question, and I wanted to open this up to the entire roundtable to see if anyone has encountered this problem. But with the Help Colorado Now fund application for nonprofits, has anyone on the panel tried applying for those funds? We're getting some word that the site is just redirecting people, that's sometimes crashing. And so we have some other people kind of on the chat here who are running into those problems. And I'm just wondering if anyone, any amongst you guys have tried with Help Colorado Now and accessing those funds.
We did. I submitted a grant application a couple weeks ago through them, and it worked fine. We got our rejection just the other day, which isn't overly surprising because I think for the first round, since we don't full-time deal with basic needs. That's not our mission normally. I feel like maybe they were focusing more on those types of organizations for that first round. So I'm actually getting ready to reapply today. So, because I think the next deadline is tomorrow. So far it worked okay for me. I didn't run into any issues, but I also haven't been back in since I submitted that first application. So I'm hoping today is not a challenge.
Hey, thank you. And so actually, Mark, to kind of pivot off that, with nonprofits of different missions, different sizes, what would be the best way for someone who is looking to get more info on loans, whether that be for mid-sized nonprofits, smaller nonprofits, on just the possible criteria, if they can even apply for it, if they're eligible, kind of ways to influence those fundings. Mark, do you have any information, or are there any resources where specific nonprofits can contact just to ask general questions if they're just not familiar with some of these new programs?
I mean, you're certainly welcome to contact us. We're trying to answer these questions as best as we can. So usually if it's kind of a more factual type question about the program, our staff are working to find answers on those types of questions. But there's, I think, a lot of really good resources through the state. Colorado SBDC, the Small Business Development Centers, have put together some really fantastic FAQs, which those are going to be small businesses and nonprofits. And the Office of Economic Development and International Trade have been doing some weekly webinars about resources that are out there. Their helpline off the top of my head, but they do have a questions about SBA programs. Again, looking online, the funding's not there for the PPP and the EIDL so I think we're kind of waiting to see what Congress is going to do. We're hearing that they're going to put more money into existing loan programs, but they're just haven't kind of reached agreement. So keep an eye out on the media next week. I'm sure those funds would get out very quickly, just like they have so far. And right now we're looking at what's going to happen with the MidSize Loan Program, just trying to see if there's going to be, what guidance is going to be put out there, if there's going to be assistance for those larger numbers through that program. And we're again pushing for more loan funding for nonprofits, but I think that's something that a lot of industries are doing right now, and talking to members of Congress, and members of Congress are going to have to weigh where those priorities are. There's lots of businesses that are going through some really hard times and really could use the help. So I think it certainly doesn't hurt to take some time to reach out to your member of Congress, reach out to your state legislator, and let them know what you're going through, what your situation is, and see if there are some ways to help. I think that's one other thing I didn't mention is the legislature is supposed to be coming back in May 18th. And I'm sure that there's going to be some legislation they'll focus on for assistance to the community, yet they're going to have about a $3 billion budget. $3 billion they're going to have to cut out of the budget or find some other ways to recoup revenue without asking the people to vote for it, or perhaps putting something on the ballot. So I don't really know what their legislature is going to do, but I think now is a really good time. Legislators are still working. Let them know what you're going through right now, and brainstorm some ideas, because I think when the legislature comes back, they don't have a lot of resources to work with, but I think there's certainly some room to be creative and find some other ways that we help out businesses and nonprofits through these hard times.
Great, thank you, Mark. And Nola, I wanted to kind of circle back with you and then Golden and the chambers. So what support are you needing from us, and what are you hearing from your businesses, and how and what kind of support they're needing from you specifically?
Yeah, thanks, Phil. So I want to follow up on what Mark just said, and in advocating with our elected officials and with our congressmen. I think that that they're doing a great job, and they're working really, really hard to be a support for all kinds of organizations, small businesses, large businesses, small nonprofits, large nonprofits. But unfortunately, not everybody falls into the categories that they've created. I know certainly our chambers of commerce are seeing that, as we are not eligible as 501c6 organizations for most grants and loans that are available out there. So we continue to advocate for ourselves, and in hopes that our community also advocates for us as well. So as far as what we're seeing in the community, one of the biggest kind of gaps that I'm seeing is rent. While there are a lot of loans and programs out there, the PPP really focuses on salaries and that issue. What we're seeing, and specifically in Golden, although I know I've had Wheat Ridge businesses reach out as well, is just the inability to pay their rent. And even if they can pay their employees, it makes it really difficult to pay rent on their storefront. So that's definitely an issue that we're seeing. And then following up on what Pam said with some of the food response, SNAP certifications have gone up. I believe the number I last heard was by 92%, which is huge. So we are going to see a lot of folks that are using that resource for the first time. I know that the Golden Chamber runs the Golden Farmers Market, and so we are planning to see a lot of people come in that are maybe uncomfortable because they haven't had to use that before, and so we're trying to plan ahead for that as well, and work with our farmers on that as well.
Great, thank you. Well, I really want to say how appreciative Diane and I are to have you guys participate in our roundtable. I think this is a very important time for us to come together as a community, and it's amazing to hear you guys' stories and the struggles you're going through, but also how you're still trying your hardest to fulfill your missions and all those critical missions that help our community every day. I did want to open up to the panel if there's anything you guys wanted to say kind of as a final as we wrap up here. All right, well, thank you guys, and keep in mind that Diane and I, we're here for all of you and for all of our listeners there. If you have any feel free to email us or call us. We can definitely help with any kind of employment or workforce concerns. But if you have any questions in general, feel free to reach out to us. And if we can answer those questions, we will definitely make sure that we connect you with the people that you can. So yeah, thank you. We really appreciate the time that everyone has taken out of their mornings. And Diana, do you want to?
Just we're gonna quick jump in. Beth with Be a Tool Now actually had a follow-up comment on the Help Colorado Now website. She had initially tried with Safari and was unable to get in. She was getting that error. And then she did it in Chrome and was able to get into the site. So that might help. Maybe just look at what browser you're using. And that's all I have, but I want to thank everybody for joining us.
All right, great. Well, thank you, everyone, and be safe, stay healthy, and yeah, let's rely on each other as neighbors, and hopefully in the next coming months, we can all get through this. So thank you.
Thank you.